This day in sports history. Happy New Year! It's January 1st, and traditionally, it is a huge day for college football with all the bowl games. Throughout sports history, we had the birth of the granddaddy of them all, some infuriating blown calls in a couple of games, a final play miracle, and Woody Hayes paid for his mistakes. All that plus a non-sports fun fact at the end about Outcast and those Polaroid pictures you've been taking. I'll kick it off right after this. Hey, real quick, you've heard me talk a lot about the Sterling Soap Company over the past few months, and if you haven't tried out their soaps, I get it. It's not easy changing up your routine. But let me just say, if you give them a try, I'm nearly 100% certain you will have zero regrets. They carry not only bar soap, but shave soap, liquid body soap, body lotions, beard balm, lip balm, and a lot more. Plus, there are myriad scents to choose from. Their products are made with natural ingredients and scented oils, and they are committed to being environmentally conscious. And I always get a handwritten note on my packing slip, so I know it's been checked before shipping, and it's a nice little human touch in a world that seems to be going away from that. Give Sterling Soap a try today at sterlingsoap.com. Let's go back 124 years to the first ever Rose Bowl game. Well, actually, hang on a second. This first edition was really called the Tournament East-West Football Game, but it was played in Pasadena in front of about 7,000 who paid upwards of $1 to attend the game. That crowd was much bigger than any of the organizers had anticipated, though. The traditional Rose Parade had been happening since 1890, but was mostly a local event with little known about it outside of Pasadena. And the idea of a game to follow the parade was an attempt to draw attention to the area by having a, quote, afternoon football match between two leading universities of the country, end quote. Stanford was invited to play after being deemed the champions of the Pacific Coast Universities, after finishing the season with 3 wins, 2 ties, and a loss. And they would face off against the Western Conference champions, the Michigan Wolverines, with their perfect 10-0 record. Michigan's head coach at the time was Fielding Yost, who the year prior had been head coach at Stanford. And this Wolverine team of his was beyond dominant that season, not only unblemished in the loss column, but they had also not allowed a point all season, outscoring their opponents 501-0. Sound like a mismatch? Yeah, it was. In fact, the game got so ugly, a Stanford captain requested the game be ended with 8 minutes remaining in the game. Well, that plea was denied, and they were forced to play it out. The Wolverines won the game 49-0, and it was such a lopsided game that when Rose Parade officials tried to organize the game the following year, they had a tough time talking people into coming back for a football game. Instead, between 1903 and 1915, the Tournament of Roses staged chariot races instead. The Rose Bowl football game was tried again in 1916 on New Year's Day, and since then, except for during the World War II years of 1942 and 43, when the game was played in Durham, North Carolina, and 2021, when the venue was moved to Arlington, Texas due to COVID, the Rose Bowl has been played in Pasadena, California. And despite its shaky first edition, the granddaddy of them all got started on this day in 1902. All right, let's get to some controversial calls in bowl games that happened on this day. Staying in Pasadena, let's go to the 1979 edition of the Rose Bowl, and this was number 5 Michigan taking on number 3 USC. Both were one-loss teams coming in. After the Trojans' Ronnie Lott picked off a Rick Leach pass in the first quarter, USC drove down the field and scored the first points of the day.
3rd down and 3 for the Trojans. Down wants to throw, and he's got it for a touchdown. He hit his receiver in the end zone for the touchdown. And
Kobe Brenner.
Kobe Brenner, where'd he come from? He's listed as about a four-stringer.
Juice just said he wasn't in his game plan.
Now, this is not the controversial play that everybody talks about with this game, but if you watch that play again, the tight end jumps before the snap. It should have been an illegal motion penalty and negated the touchdown, but the line judge completely missed it. So, 7-0 Trojans after the PAT. Michigan got a field goal in the second quarter to make it a 7-3 game. And that brings us to the controversy. Southern Cal drove down the field and had a 2nd and goal from the 3. The handoff went to future Heisman Trophy winner Charles White.
White again. And a fumble. There's a big fumble. They say he was over. Doesn't matter what happens after he's above or over the goal line. He had crossed or was over the goal line and scored.
We may have a chance to see it, but if he did fumble the ball when he hit the ground, he definitely was in the end zone.
Well, I'm for SC, but I thought he had lost control of it before he got into the end zone, but hopefully we'll get a chance to see it again.
So you hear the confusion about the call on the field, and you probably recognize the voice of O.J. Simpson, who was in the booth that day, and he was right. But they didn't really have a great angle or a clear shot of the play until later in the broadcast. But it became pretty obvious it was a horrible call. As White tried to stretch the ball over the goal line, Michigan's Ron Simpkins hit it out of his hands at the 1.5-yard line. The Wolverines jumped on the loose ball, and it should have been a turnover. Instead, the same line judge, Gil Marchman, that missed the motion penalty on the first Trojan touchdown, rushed in and threw his hands up, not listening to any of the arguments that the ball came out before he crossed. No replay option for the refs, obviously, and Michigan had to live with what became called the phantom touchdown. USC added a field goal at the end of the half and went to the locker room with a 17-3 lead. Rick Leach was playing his final game in a Michigan uniform. He'd been a 4-year starter for Bo Schembechler and had transformed the old ball coach a bit from a run-it-all-the-time coach to a signal caller willing to let his quarterback put it in the air on occasion. Leach threw a 44-yard touchdown strike in the third to narrow the margin to 17-10, but Michigan could not find their way back to the end zone the rest of the way, and that's the way it ended. But if not for the phantom touchdown call, this game may have turned out differently. Schembechler said years later that he only carried one grudge, and it was against Marchman, but not because he made a mistake. He said it was because he never admitted the mistake. Let's scoot ahead to the 1991 Orange Bowl and more controversy. This was top-ranked Colorado versus number 5 Notre Dame. After starting the season with a tie, a win, and a loss, the Buffaloes had beaten number 22 Texas, number 12 Washington, a 22nd-ranked Oklahoma Sooners team, and dominated 3rd-ranked Nebraska in Lincoln to move up to the number 1 spot in the AP poll coming into this game. And they were definitely in the championship picture. The Fighting Irish had spent a lot of that season as the number 1 team in the land, but losses to an unranked Stanford team and number 18 Penn State pushed them down to number 5. When Eric Bieniemy scored in the third quarter from a yard out, Colorado took a 10-9 lead. Still down 1 with 1:05 in the game, the Buffs punted it away. Deep for the Irish was the Rocket, Rocket Ismael.
First priority is to get the kick away. The Irish will send 10 men, and then they back off. Well done. The Rocket at the 10. And he's corralled for a moment, breaks into the clear. One man to beat, and he won't get him. The Rocket Ismael has done it again. Touchdown, Notre Dame.
I see a flag, Dick. I see a flag.
So the flag was for a very questionable block in the back. Replays showed more contact to the defender's shoulder, but nothing they could do about it. The call erased the 90-yard punt return for touchdown. The Irish still had the ball and a chance, but when Rick Mirer threw a pick on the final play, it snuffed any hope. While a lot of folks point to the controversial clipping call on the punt return, Notre Dame can blame themselves just as much after turning the ball over 4 times in the second half. Colorado escaped with the 10-9 win, and they kept their number 1 ranking in the AP poll. Georgia Tech was voted first in the coaches poll, and the teams shared the 1990 championship. Let's keep the exciting finishes going with what happened on this day in 2005 in the Capital One Citrus Bowl, featuring the 11th-ranked Iowa Hawkeyes and the number 12 LSU Tigers. This was a pretty tight game for the first 3 quarters, but when Iowa scored a touchdown with 12:48 to play, they led 24-12. LSU responded, though. Jamarcus Russell hit Skylar Green for a 22-yard strike, and it was a 5-point game. The next Tigers drive took the clock down under a minute to play. Facing a 2nd and goal from the 3, here's ESPN's Gary Thorne with the call.
A 2nd down, goal to go from the 3-yard line. Again, Russell looking into the end zone. Green, touchdown!
The Tigers went for 2 to try to make it a 3-point game, but that try failed, so it was LSU up 25-24 with 45 seconds left. The Hawkeyes were able to run a couple of plays to move the ball out to midfield, but instead of calling one of their 2 timeouts they had to, stop the clock, they tried to spike it to stop the clock. But a penalty for illegal motion pushed them back 5 yards while also negating the spike to stop the clock, and it nearly cost them a shot to win it. Here's Iowa's radio team of Gary Dolphin and Ed Podolak with the call of the final play.
Now they got to call timeout. They wind the clock. 9 seconds to play, and Drew Tate doesn't know that. The game's going to end on this play. He fires downfield. It's caught, and into the end zone. Touchdown, Iowa! Touchdown, Iowa! No time on the clock. I don't believe what I just saw. Touchdown, Iowa! Oh, my God, I can't believe what I just saw. Was it Solomon?
It was, no. That was Holloway.
Warren Holloway. The forgotten man. The forgotten man. Drew Tate tried to hand the game to LSU. He wouldn't call timeout. He didn't know the clock had restarted, and he just fired a touchdown pass.
LSU was just stunned.
Of 60 yards. Unbelievable.
Warren Holloway on the receiving end of what Iowa fans now refer to as simply the catch. Let's go back to the Rose Bowl for this final look at New Year's Day bowl games. The 1971 Rose Bowl featured the undefeated and 2nd-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, who were double-digit favorites against a 3-loss Stanford team led by Heisman Trophy winner Jim Plunkett. Coach Woody Hayes made several questionable decisions in the lead-up to this game. First, Ohio State's offense had run the I formation successfully for the previous 4 seasons. The seniors on this team had lost just 1 game in their time in Columbus. But after the Buckeyes beat Michigan on November 21st, Hayes decided to revamp the offense and change to the wishbone. Now, the wishbone fit Hayes' mentality as a coach, but it does require precise timing and several reads for the quarterback. That left his offense, and especially his quarterback Rex Kern, a bit perplexed. Secondly, a few weeks before the game, he started insisting that his quarterbacks hit the blocking dummy in case, they needed to lay a linebacker on the ground to spring a running back with this new offense they were running. Well, in doing so, Kern, his starting quarterback, injured his throwing shoulder. Not enough to keep him out of the game, but it was enough to limit him. And the last thing that Hayes did, and for a lot of the guys who endured 4 years of Hayes and his acerbic coaching style, this was the final straw. He promised the team a day off when they got to Pasadena in the days leading up to the game. 2 years prior, he'd made them tape up on the airplane to go immediately to the stadium and practice. So the team was looking forward to a little rest prior to the game. Well, instead, Hayes walked back his promise, and when the team plane was in the air, told them to tape up, and he ran them through a grueling workout once they landed. That nearly caused a mutiny. Buckeye captain Jim Stillwagon actually gave Coach Hayes a list of grievances from the players, but that went nowhere. Stanford took an early 10-0 lead. Ohio State fought back with 2 John Brockington touchdown runs to take the lead going into the locker room at halftime. The teams traded field goals in the third quarter, but when Jackie Brown scored his second of the day from a yard out in the fourth, it gave Stanford the lead for good. Whether Kern's injured shoulder had anything to do with it, he did throw an interception on the next possession to squelch a chance to retake the lead. Plunkett found Randy Vataha for a 10-yard strike, and Stanford beat the Buckeyes 27-17. With Notre Dame upsetting top-ranked Texas earlier in the day in the Cotton Bowl, Ohio State had a chance to win the national championship. But with the loss, they dropped to fifth, and Nebraska moved into the top spot to claim their first national title. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. After Outkast's 2004 hit song Hey Ya came out, that included the line, "Shake it like a Polaroid picture," well, the Polaroid company issued an official statement that you should definitely not shake your just-taken Polaroid picture. The company said shaking does not accelerate the development process, but it could distort the image. Instead, they recommended laying it flat and shielding it from the wind. Hey, if you've not had enough of reliving the New Year's Day Greatest Hits Volume 3 version, well, I've put last year's episode right below this one that's got a crazy occurrence from the 1954 Cotton Bowl. I also asked the question, did the Boomer Sooner Schooner cost Oklahoma a national football title in '85 and a wild Fiesta Bowl finish from 2007? But if you've had enough and you are ready to watch this year's New Year's Day games, then enjoy, and I'll see you back here tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.